The budget presented today by the Finance Minister has some extremely welcome features today. And there are some very disquieting features of deep disappointment. Let us look at the big picture. There are three things that strike me as something very important. Two extremely positive, one extremely negative. The two positive things are, the first one, tremendous fillip to investment in infrastructure. The capital investment of the government, the union government alone, has gone up by 34% to 7.5 trillion rupees, that is 7.5 lakh crores, from the present level of 5.54 lakh crores. At a time of COVID pandemic, when in general government expenditure has gone up, when the government is under fiscal stress, when the revenues, though there is some improvement now, in the last 2 years revenues have actually fallen dramatically, this is an incredible achievement. The Finance Minister and the government must be given their due credit for this remarkable accomplishment in a difficult time. On top of this, as the Finance Minister said, if they include the 1 lakh crores given as a soft loan, practically a grant, a 50-year soft loan at zero interest for capital investment in select areas, it's a huge bonanza, plus other grants in aid and subsidies for investment. The total comes to 10.68 lakh crores. It's a significant boost to economic growth and the long-term future of the country. This gives us confidence that if you sustain this over the period of next 15-20 years, with appropriate increases every year, and if you utilize this money wisely, prudently, and if we execute these projects very swiftly and efficiently, India can reach world standards. Today, we are absolutely subpar on every major infrastructural issue by global standards. Among large economies, we rank the lowest. And a pathway is created now to significantly improve this, but it must be sustained. It must be efficiently utilized. The second big thing is, this significant increase in capital expenditure has been accomplished without serious fiscal deficits. Everybody knows that during the COVID pandemic world over, the government revenues have fallen dramatically. Expenditure has gone up exponentially. You have to take care of the poor, you have to spend more money on vaccines and other healthcare things. India is no exception. But despite these difficulties, thanks to the improvement in the tax revenues in the recent past and a robust recovery in the present year, India is now expected to grow at a fairly comfortable rate of 9% or 9.2% in the current year, which on a low base is not good enough but better than most other countries in the world. The Finance Minister could accomplish this task by reducing the fiscal deficit. It's now estimated to be 6.9% this year, current year, and 6.4% in the next year, with a roadmap in the next 3 years to bring it down to 4.5%. That's a very creditable and important achievement. Our debt GDP ratio is pretty high for a country like us. It's already about 90%. In the current year, it probably will go up to 95-96%. That means about 6% of our revenues, 6% of our GDPs as a country, not revenues, GDP as a country, is going only for debt servicing. When you consider that the total tax GDP ratio, that means the ratio of the total money in the country that is collected by the government as taxes, it's only about 17 or 18%. When you consider that about 6% is going only for the debt servicing, that's an incredible amount. And therefore, the Finance Minister's effort to bring down the fiscal deficits, bring back to the path of fiscal discipline is very welcome, and we must congratulate them for resisting the temptation to spend lavishly at the cost of the future. These are the two great accomplishments of this budget, in my opinion. The capital expenditure for infrastructure and the fiscal management, fiscal prudence and discipline. The great negative, an extremely unhappy negative that personally distresses me a great deal, must cause all of us a lot of anguish if we care for India's future, is the failure to seize the opportunity to improve the healthcare system. We have seen the tremendous damage done to the economy, to the people, to the families and their lives and livelihoods in the last 2 years on account of the COVID pandemic. In the months of April and May, probably lakhs of people died. Officially, government claims a few lakh people died, but the actual number can be multiples of that. Tens of lakhs of families became paupers. There was no hospital infrastructure. Many people suffered or even died because there was no oxygen. There were no beds. There were no ICUs. There was no healthcare access. This is not merely because of COVID. This is because our healthcare infrastructure and healthcare delivery system are in shambles. Among the large economies, we are the weakest in the world in healthcare. Our expenditure in healthcare from the government is the lowest in the world among all significant economies. It's about 1.1% of GDP. Absolutely the lowest in the world. We cannot spend what the rich countries spend. They spend 9-10%. We cannot even spend 4-5%. But we can easily spend another 0.5 or 0.6% or 1%. But if it's judiciously employed, even that 0.5 or 1%, we can have a very high quality, viable, universal healthcare program. Because India has many advantages. Our vaccine industry, our pharma industry are world champions. We have seen how the Indian vaccine industry has delivered in a short span of time. And today, at a relatively low cost, we could vaccinate almost 1 billion people. It's not a small accomplishment. Our healthcare infrastructure in private sector is extremely good. They're able to provide world-class care and select interventions at the lowest cost possible. And we have plenty of human resource talent, doctors, nurses, biotechnologists, pharmacists, and so on and so forth. If we leverage these strengths at a low cost of 0.5 to 0.6% GDP additional expenditure, properly deployed, integrating the care from the primary level, including free diagnostics, free consultations, and free treatment. Secondary level, as the Ayushman Bharat, etc. already are there in many states, many programs are there, risk coverage programs, and tertiary care improvements through government system. If we do it in an appropriate manner, at a low cost, we can radically improve our health care. And we can save from poverty every year 6 crore people. Because that's the number of people who are becoming poor in India because of poor healthcare system. Because of ill health, either expenditure incurred or income lost on account of ill health problems. It is a shame. We can easily overcome that. A great opportunity has been squandered in the budget, but all is not lost. I hope that the Union and the states will take the opportunity in the next 1 year and comprehensively study that, and with passion and with competence and with vision, implement what is long overdue, a universal healthcare program with public-private partnership in a viable manner, with the Union and states taking complete partnership of that. That failing is something inexplicable in this budget, but we must overcome that failing. We must make amends for that. There are a few other areas which are causes of concern. Rule of law is important for a growing economy. If your disputes are not resolved without use of force or resorting to a bribe or suffering injustice silently, if there is no criminal justice system, if the rights of the poor are not enforced, if the police are inefficient or inadequate, if forensics simply don't exist, if prosecution is partisan and inefficient and inadequate, and if courts delay justice, economic growth also will suffer, apart from people suffering injustice. We need to invest more and design systems that deliver. Occasionally we pay lip sympathy. A budget that is aggressively promoting growth should have looked at the constraints to growth and have looked at the larger governance issues. I think that's a glaring failure in not looking at rule of law. While the budget looked at big cities and their future is necessary, I'm happy that attention is paid to big cities. It's paid to global warming and climate change. It's long overdue that India paid attention to these issues. And these two, you can see the imprint of those two issues in the budget in many places. They're welcome and necessary. Similarly, the budget looked at big city management. But small towns are very important to prevent migration to distant cities. A large number of poor, mostly with low level of skills, are forced to go to distant big cities and lead subnormal existence. subhuman existence. Urban poverty is growing. They are living in appalling conditions. And as we've seen in the case of lockdown in the wake of COVID in many parts of the country, the migrant laborers from distant big cities, once they lost livelihood, they had to go back to the villages in desperate conditions. The amount of pain and anguish they suffered was unbelievable. It touched everybody's heart. Unless we encourage small town development so that a large number of people need not migrate to distant big cities, there is in situ urbanization. And at the same time, improvement of the big cities, greenfield development and improvement of amenities and attack on urban poverty, including urban housing program, we will not be able to handle the future. Unfortunately, small town development is not understood. And our notion appears to be somehow if big cities grow, that's enough. That's another glaring failure, in my view, in this budget. Ultimately, a budget is only as good as our capacity to deliver. If you notice in the last 25, 30 years, wherever we generated competition and choice, wherever private investment and private efforts are encouraged, wherever the animal spirits of the people are liberated, we have done well. That's how we got telephones, we got consumer goods, we got automobiles, we got many things we thought were luxuries 30, 40 years ago in this country. But wherever government alone can deliver, wherever there's a natural monopoly, wherever there's no substitute to the government's capacity to deliver, we are languishing very badly. Our basic infrastructure, our basic amenities including drinking water, sanitation, sewerage systems, stormwater drainage, etc., our rule of law, our quality of education, and our health care. These are all suffering because government has to play either a monopoly role or a substantial role in delivery of these goods and services. Unless we enhance the state's capacity to deliver, competence to deliver in a corruption-free manner, poverty will continue. It will be a lag on the economy. It's beyond the budgets. You cannot separate governance from economic management. Economic management is vital, but governance is equally vital. You cannot continue the 21st century economy, if that's our aspiration, with 19th century politics and governance. We have to have a governance to match the needs of 21st century. And unfortunately, neither the budgetary allocations nor the political discourse in the country is looking at these things. We're presuming business as usual is okay if only some allocations change. The kind of allocations made, they're all necessary and welcome in this budget, with the shortcomings I mentioned like failure of healthcare. But what is spent, if the delivery is not improved, for instance, education, we are spending 4.2% of GDP in education. More money is welcome, but what we are spending is not delivering anything at all. Our education is abysmally poor in this country. 80% of the kids in India cannot compete with the rest of the world at all. They're getting substandard education. It's not worth calling it education. It's not expenditure. It's about delivery. It's about capacity. In many, many areas of basic service delivery and amenities, we are faltering and failing. We have to improve the civil service reform, better delivery everywhere, decentralization of power with accountability, strengthening the third tier federalism and making them accountable and effective and responsive to people. These are all issues we are neglecting to our peril. I hope we will not de-link economic issues from governance issues, because both are integral to the future of our society, our growth, and our children's prosperity. But all in all, with this big exception of failure in healthcare, this is an extremely sound budget in difficult conditions. Let's hope it will be sustained, it will be implemented well, and we will manage this path of progress, overcoming the deficiencies over the next 25 years, so that what China accomplished astoundingly in one generation, we too can accomplish. Starting from late 1970s, within 30 years, China became a global power, matching the ability and the wealth of the United States, challenging the global order, and finding a place for themselves at the top of the heap. India can easily match China, but not without a tremendous effort like China made over a generation. This budget gives a fillip, but it has deficiencies. If you persevere and if you overcome the deficiencies, focus on the state's basic functioning and focus, as we have done in this budget, on infrastructure, investment, employment generation in a big way, India can reach that level. A little late compared to China, but it's better late than never.